All right, we're live.
Here we are. Welcome everybody to the Life, Love, and Money pop-up chat with Summer and
Jen.
so welcome. And today we're going to talk about the Great Resignation and the Great Regret. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, the great regret.
The Great Regret. Oh my goodness. So
Or the not so great resignation.
right, or the not so great. That's right. So just so that you know, Jen makes all of our incredible graphics. So 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 when we went to go post this, yeah, not so great resignation, right? So that's what we'll be talking about, and how this great resignation turned into possibly a regret, and how you can actually turn this around into success. So you want to get started, Jen? Let's get started.
Yes. Let's get started. And I'm sure you're going to go into it. Yeah, I think just for some people who may not be aware of what was the Great Resignation, I love the stat you found out about that. So yeah, but definitely I'm excited for this topic. So let's dive into it.
Okay, sounds good. So essentially, one quick second. Okay, here we go. So essentially, what happened last year up through still going on, 4.4 million people resigned from their jobs in 2021. So we are looking at scarcity in employees in certain jobs. We're looking at, people who felt devalued in their job, not appreciated. 4.4 million people that resigned. So what does this mean? This means a lot, because that was what was considered the Great Resignation, right? And there's so many more statistics that we could go into, but let's get into kind of the meat and potatoes of this, because I think it's really important to understand, why some of the issues and some of the fallout and some of the reasons why there might be somewhat of a regret right now by certain people or individuals. And one of them, just obviously, is how that affects your quality of life. When you resign from a job and you're not getting your pay and you're not getting your regular salary, what happens? You can't pay your bills, or you can't live the life you're accustomed to. So naturally, this would have an impact on your quality of life. So there might be a little bit of regret there. The next phase that I want to talk about really quickly is something called the social contagion effect, or mimic effect. It's also, it's something in psychology that basically is where behavior spread because of attitudes, affect what's going on in a crowd, what's going on in society, and members it's kind of a contagion, right? And so what happens is it's an imitation, it's conformity. So this means that many people got maybe caught up in the flurry of, oh gosh, they quit. This legitimizes how I feel. Right?
That's scary. I don't think it's the same exact thing as what you're describing, but I know the other term called herd mentality.
Yes.
Right. And I can't wait for you to dive more into this. But one of the things I remember learning when I was studying some of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, was when we're in that herd mentality, we actually are experiencing, consciously we don't realize it, but we're actually experiencing our IQ dropping. And it's like this, it becomes like a lower average because you're amongst everybody. And it's that crazy effect of birds of a feather flock together. Your income is the average of the 5 people you hang around the most. And it's just like, we consciously aren't even being aware of how all these things are affecting us. So I love what you're talking about, this social contagion.
Yeah, this is really a very interesting concept. So this really means that if someone else is feeling this way, well, my feelings are really legitimized. So I understand what you mean by the herd mentality. It's kind of similar, but at the same time, it's based on feelings, emotions. So people really kind of conform, imitate, and mimic, right? Because it's also called the mimic effect. So let's get into the next step, because I think you kind of get the idea of what the contagion effect is, right? So people will jump on board because really they're feeling like, gosh, if so many people are doing this, then I'm feeling my feelings are right on point. They're legitimized. I'm not one of the unordinary, like this is common. And so I feel okay about doing A, B, or C.
Yeah.
And when you feel, or some people might just jump and say, okay, well, I feel good about this, so I'm going to leave. I'm just going to quit my job.
You
And
made
if,
me think oh, sorry.
no, please
You,
go.
you you made
Yeah.
me think of something interesting. So I'm listening to what you're saying. How much of FOMO, fear of missing out, do you think
Yeah.
plays into all this? There's that legitimizing and almost like this external affirmation or confirmation, like you said, legitimizing. I feel like, wow, I this should be right because everybody else around me is doing it. How much of do you think of FOMO, if at all, plays into that?
Yeah, there could be some of that. There definitely could be some of, I think there's multiple factors that really play into this, Jen. So thank you for bringing that up. I absolutely think that a lot of people got caught in the snowball effect, right? Into that they're doing, it starts with a snowflake and then it moves on into this big snowball, right? And so
Avalanche.
yeah, the avalanche. And that is exactly, it's like the big storm, the big social contagion, the big, resignation. And so now we have, is it the big regret? Is it the great regret? Well, for some people it is, because again, just basic premise is it affects in quality of life. The next part of that is that contagious social contagion effect, or the mimic effect. So then let's go into kind of what we can do about this. If you're in that situation where you feel regretful about maybe the action that you took because you got caught up in the flurry into the snowball, what do you do now? And I'm not just going to be speaking to the person looking for the job, but also the employer. Because
Yes.
right? So this is a big deal. So because this is actually an opportunity. This is actually an opportunity for those seeking employment and those hiring and those running companies. So another stat that I put out there before is that in general, people hold a job for about 5 years now. We don't hold jobs for 30 years like our grandparents, parents, right?
No.
So we hold a job for about 5 years. We have about 12 different jobs in a lifetime. What does that mean? That means there's opportunity.
Yeah.
And this is what happened with the Great Resignation. It also created opportunity. So what does this mean for both the employee and the employer? This means that you have the opportunity right now to do a deep dive. So think about some of the things that make you happy. What is it? Reflect on things that might make you happy. What skill set have you created or developed that you love? What can you harness? What job or business you want? Think about what job or business that you want to start, what skills you have that support various companies or businesses you're thinking about starting, and what value can you offer a company? And same goes for the employer. What value can you offer those seeking to work with you? And that's huge, because when you look at it that way, this is an opportunity. Even say, for instance, let's check this out, Jen. So if you quit a job and you were like, I'm not so happy, but this gave me time to think. I'm going to possibly resign. Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to just resign. Okay. But it wasn't all bad.
Yeah.
Now, what I want people to think about is, don't idealize what you had. Think about concretely what you want, what it is that you want. Research what you want. Dive into like what makes you happy, what skills you really like to use and apply. And then go and research some of those opportunities out there. That even means researching that same company.
Yes, I love this because one of the things that I was thinking about when I knew this topic was coming up, and maybe not all of you out there jump ship during the Great Resignation, but you might be in the aftermath of it. Like, hey, that happened, but you might be in a situation where you're thinking about it. And now we're talking about even the company you if you laugh and then you're thinking about the same company. This is why it's so important. Life lesson: do not burn bridges. Do not burn bridges, because there's many people who will have the opportunity. I mean, I've been in some places where I've worked in the past years and years ago where people came back. I'm like, oh, you're here. And they're like, yeah, I called, like, I wasn't happy where I went. And I remember always thinking in the back of my mind, like, wow, I commended their bravery and the humbleness that they had to be able to ask, like, hey, can I come back? For one thing, because I'd be like, I'm the one that just turned in my resignation. Now I'm coming back begging for my job back. Hey, can I come back? But it also highlights that there's an opportunity if you leave on good terms. And you should anyway. I mean, every situation is different, but if you're able to leave on good terms, I mean, why would you want like a crappy LinkedIn review or recommendation or just not being able to, there's that weird situation like, oh, I don't really want to put that employer down, but then you're faced with a different situation where now you have gaps in your resume. But this is so important that we always remember, think very hard where if you are leaving you on good terms, because it does affect things, because you just never know. You never know. You may not go back to that company, but people move all the time. What if somebody who was your manager or your boss goes to another company and then like, oh great, now you want to go there, but you realize, oh, this person would be my manager or my superior. So lots of things to think about whether or not you participated in the Great Resignation.
Yeah, so many. Here's the other thing, and I kind of want to piggyback on what you were saying, Jen. So I love that whole concept of don't burn bridges. I grew up with that. My mom said it all the time. Like when you get to go to your next job, first of all, she said, don't leave a job until you have another job. That was like number one for me. My mom was like, you don't leave a job until you have another job. Get this, girl.
Right.
She's like, you're going to pay for your yearbook, your prom dress, you better get a job. So, so that was okay to me. I was okay with that, but that was a learning lesson. And she also said her next lesson was don't burn bridges, because you never know. And a lot of times, based on the industry that we work in, you'd be amazed how small that industry actually is and who regardless of if they're on the West Coast, East Coast, North, South, it doesn't matter. When you work in an industry, people know people.
Yeah.
So yeah, plan wisely. Actually, Veronica said plan wisely. Absolutely. Here's the other thing. Now, if you've quit and you got caught up in the Great Resignation, this is an opportunity for you to do your research, to look at those jobs, and for the employer to think about how come these people were resigning. Do some of their own reflection, because here's the thing. It might have been years ago that you were flipping through your like Rolodex, if you remember what those are, and somebody resigned and you're like, pitch. I'm going to pitch their card. I'm not going to like hire them back. They left our company. Maybe there's this resentment, but today that is not necessarily the case, because if employers are smart, they'd say, what can we do better? How can we work differently with this employee? This is a collaboration. This is an agreement. So employer, when you're looking for somebody, your potential employer, go in there with your questions and with what you're looking for, and how maybe if you're going back to that same job, maybe not that position, how you can do better in that, what you're coming in with in regards to terms and what they can offer you, and how you guys can work together better. Because this is an opportunity to improve your work life, and the employer then doesn't have to go and hire people, doesn't have to retrain people. This saves money for recruiting. There's all kinds of things that can happen here that are really beneficial. So if you are in fact going to look at your same employer, and the employer is looking for people to come in and say, hey, what is it that I can do better? Or how can I, make sure that I'm limiting my costs when I go to look for people? Well, you're not going to have to retrain people if you're hiring the same people, but you can do this better. You can create a better environment, a healthier workforce.
Yeah, I just want to also highlight, thank you, Veronica, for being here, and Sir Michael. So wonderful to see you guys here. Veronica said work environment expectations have been reset. Also, career paths have changed. Absolutely. And I love, Summer, that you are also putting accountability back on the companies and these businesses. It's not always like, oh, that bad employee, you left and now you're coming back. But here's the thing. It's kind of like a supply and demand thing, where now companies and businesses are realizing like, oh no, we lost all these people. And not everybody was treating everybody, poorly, but I want to encourage you, if you have to reflect, hey, we could have probably done a better job taking care of our people. I think this is a wake up call because many companies out there are experiencing a shortage. And
Oh,
now
yeah.
you got to hire people. You can't get back the ones that left. Some may not want to come back depending on how badly they were treated.
Yeah.
But if you're hiring people that did not have the same skill sets and value that your other people had brought to the company before they left, now you got to retrain. And even in business, there's that saying that we talk about where it's easier to keep and take care of your clients than to find new ones.
Yeah.
And so this is why it's so important that we take care of our people. If you are a business owner, if you are, the head of a company, some kind of manager position or something like that, it's so important that you lead, and you are there for your people, you're there for your team. And when you're not, like, that's when you get people that are unhappy, and that's what disrupts their balance, not even in the workplace but also at home. And so we always hear these topics about work-life balance, but we spend more time at our jobs nowadays. I mean, it's crazy. And one of the messages that was at church this past week, and interestingly enough, it was talking about, even though we're home, we are working more hours now that in COVID versus when people were going physically into the office, because you don't have to drive anywhere. You're eating lunch where you work. So all this time that's accumulated, we're filling it up with, oh, I can catch up more. I can get more done. How many of you have said, oh, I can do more appointments because I don't have to drive anywhere? We're actually working more. Right? We all said it. Like, I said it. Like, hey, I can talk to more people. Like, I just go click off Zoom and go to this one. We are actually working more, and so it's so critical. And there's also this we're seeing some people, slowly going back into the work, physically into the office. Yeah. You never left the workforce, but many of us are going back into the office, or even students are going back to campuses. And so I think this is like a wake-up call. This is an opportunity for companies and businesses to really, really, really evaluate, how are you valuing your people? What kind of things are you providing that can help them have balance in their life? I've been fortunate enough, shout out to USC. They've involved me with some of their programs that they're supporting their employees. What are some of the workshops that we can provide for, their wellness? Yeah. It has, and there's always ways to see how is this helping them in their workplace. So I think this is great that, we're taking a look at, hey, did you leave? Okay, what can you do now? But we're also taking a look at, the companies and businesses. What can you do for your people?
Absolutely. And as Veronica said, working from home has always been more hours, in sales, easily 60 hours a day. So, yeah. I mean, a week, right? Wait, hours a week. Yeah. I was like, a day. Wait a second. I don't think there's 60. Oh my God. But that's what it feels like, right? Sometimes it feels like that because we can get caught up, and it's so easy to walk into your office and never leave. Because, and I find myself doing that sometimes, like, oh gosh, yesterday I was planning for a bath. Did I get the bath? No, because I stayed in my office and worked. And my husband's like, you can do it. You can get that relaxing bath. And I was like, nope, can't. Sorry, worked too many hours. So, those are my own boundaries. But here's the thing. There's another concept called social bond theory. Now, social bond theory in psychology is really when employees are more likely to be loyal to their companies if they feel unique, valued, and important. So this is a real opportunity for employers to think about, how can I also make those potential employees and the employees that work for me now, with me now, how can I make them feel unique, valued, and important? And that's so important, because here's a great opportunity. The Great Resignation, which maybe led to some people's great regret, can also lead to the great success. This is an opportunity to do maybe some think tanks with people who potentially work for you, who potentially want to come back, where you can get this right this time and say, how can we do this better? How can we work more effectively together? How can we produce more together when we both all feel valued in this company?
Yeah.
And we're hearing people, right? So I think that I think this is a great opportunity because there are so many jobs available. Remember, and research also shows that yes, 4.4 people resigned because due to the great resignation, but they also said that this is going to continue through into the new year, this new year. So for that matter, it really is an opportunity for both employee and employer to do their research, to really find out and be action oriented about how you can come together as a community to do better, to work better, and what that looks like, what that process is going to be. Because again, you don't want people resigning, you want them to be happy. And
Yeah.
people out there who are looking for these jobs, they also are looking for better quality of life.
Yeah. I love what Veronica said. She said new programs instead of daycare, maybe homeschool, biz school for concerned parents.
Yeah.
Exactly. What other things can companies offer their employees? And I get it. And some companies just don't have the capacity and the budget, but at least start thinking and future thinking, like including that in the budget, or how can you work towards providing some, allocating some revenue towards that if it's possible. That's a whole different thing. But you know when I have talked to some people that have been able to work from home, and they're happy, they're like, yeah, it's great. They've been pretty flexible. I've been able to do this. I've been able to, I have a friend who is actually a CFO of a huge company, and she was able to just fly back and forth from San Francisco to down here in LA. It was like interesting. And she was in the middle of an MBA program. She was getting married. I mean, it was all kinds of things. And she was in the middle of this transition. They were so accommodating, and she felt valued.
Yeah.
And she even got a promotion. All this was happening during COVID. And so I've seen companies be able to provide those types of things for their employees. And it's a win-win when like you said, in this social bond theory, if people feel valued and important. And there are so many business books that I've read where this exact theory is happening, where there is a greater appreciation for everything. There's a respect for the things at the office. There's no waste. People shift the culture where they're starting to look at, like, hey, you know what, if I don't pick this up, it gets thrown. That's like 5 cents, but it adds up. Like every single thing adds up. And so when there is an appreciation for the company, because there was appreciation for the workers and the employees, there's money saved. There's a greater company culture that's healthy. And then the company wins too. Like everybody wins. And it's so sad when a lot of companies and businesses don't understand that. And it's only about the bottom line. It's just like, it's just not going to work. You're going to have massive turnover. You're never going to retain good people. And you're going to be constantly experiencing like the not so great resignation if
Yeah.
you don't value your people.
And that made me think of something too, Jen, about, the flexibility and working from home. There are many people in the service industry who cannot work from home. And that includes people at your grocery stores, gas stations, hospitals,
Yeah.
restaurants, those people, and hospitals. And this makes me think of a situation where when I worked in mental health and I was doing crisis intervention and crisis assessment, and people would come into the hospital for assessment who were suicidal, homicidal, gravely disabled, there was no way that I could work from home.
Yeah.
No way. But we were also confronting a huge shift, and a huge shift of people that are also starting to depress, that are also starting to feel angst because of the situation, which meant more of a mass amount of people coming in for services, for those services. We have to think about also the people that are on the job who never left their job,
Mm-hmm.
and that service increased. So how are employees also employers taking care of their employees in that situation, where you've got to look at the culture, you've got to look at systemically what's happening in society, and how is that impacting the culture of the workforce, because it is so critical. Otherwise people are going to be falling out, burning out, and leaving. So this is also a really good time, if you don't want your employees to be part of that great resignation, to think about how can you really support that community culture based on what is happening in society today. So you got to keep your finger on the pulse and think about, it's easy. We talk about this a lot. It's easy to always think about just being comfortable. It's comfortable because this is how we always did it. But you can't think comfortable when things around you are changing so drastically. So we
Yeah.
have to also think about, okay, if we want to retain these employees, how do we do that? By understanding what's happening in society and what's happening, how that impacts our work culture.
Yeah. I think this
So
is also important for everybody to understand, to be compassionate and
yeah,
flexible,
yeah,
because and communication. I mean, if you're somebody that's just constantly complaining to your coworker, but you never bring up your challenges or your issues with your boss, your manager, I mean, what do you expect them to change? You
yeah,
complaining about it and not bringing it up to the people who can hopefully put some change into effect for you. You have to be able to communicate. But then again, I also look at the other side: bosses, managers, the company, the powers that be. Also, be willing to listen to your people, hear what they are asking you. And I'm not saying all this change can happen overnight, because I know some
no,
people probably think like, well, there's not always money for it. Yeah, but you can at least start implementing some things, and at least help your people understand, like, here's the thing. I think people just want to feel, you heard me. You're putting some effort into doing something about it. It's when we feel like nobody cares and nothing's going to be done, that's when we get disgruntled and pissed
yeah,
because nobody gives a damn of what's happening. But if that's why I'm saying, you have to have the communication and the compassion, and people just want to see, like, are you doing something about it? It's when, how many times you hear complaints like, they're not doing anything, they don't care. That is not that is not company loyalty, and you're going to lose those people, and vice versa. So it's, everybody needs to just kind of work together and listen to one another, because when I've seen case studies where I'm like, wow, when there's this shift in mindset of how things could be run and everybody helping one another, man, like, profits go through the roof, revenue increases like 200%. It's amazing. I'm like, man, if everybody could just embrace this and do this, so many people would be experiencing wins, and so many companies would be experiencing, lots of profits. And then it's just such a win-win for everybody when people can grasp this concept.
absolutely. So Veronica says business process and procedures are changing. Reward employees who come up with new ideas, new ways of doing the job to accommodate the changes, such as COVID, post-pandemic, have brought bonus programs.
Mm,
Yes,
I
yes,
love that.
important. So there's so much going on here. I want to add to something to what you just said, Jen. And I think it was a really good point. Reflective listening costs nothing.
Mm,
Costs
yeah.
nothing. It's totally free. But if you don't know how to do it, figure out how to reflective listening, because there is a process to it. And it is really important. It is to sit there, to listen, and to not just regurgitate, but understand, not listen for your response, but listen
Mm,
and absorb what's happening. And then here's another tip I think would be really helpful for those of you who are making this into a success. If you are thinking about going to any job, or if you're unhappy in your current job, come in with solutions, potentials for solutions. So don't just go to your boss and say, I'm unhappy because da 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 da. Say, I'm unhappy because, but here's a potential solution. Here are three options. What do you think about this? An employer, be open to that dialogue, the dialogue of, okay, I hear what this person is saying. We go back to social bond theory. I want to make them feel valued, unique, and important. And so, what does that look like? It means reflective listening. It means collaboration. It means bringing in these employees and the employer, supervisors, managers to the table, because a lot of employees can be scared because of the company culture. Depending
yeah.
on what the company culture looks like, they may be very intimidated to come to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, this is why this pop-up chat isn't just for the person seeking the job, but it's also for the people looking to hire or looking to continue to have that workforce maintain or retain that workforce within their company. So anyhow, those are some of the tips that we came up with, how in regards to how to make the great resignation, which could be the great regret, into a major success. So
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Yeah. Let's turn this into let's move on. It's like economic. Let's move on to the next stage and like let's make this the great success.
that's right. And this all takes action, folks. So, if you're sitting there thinking, oh gosh, this is so horrible, this is I can, and you're wallowing that's not going to help. What is going to help, and this is what Jen and I are always all about. What are we about? Action, action, action.
Oh yes.
Making sure.
Implementation. Action.
That's right? So, all right, folks, you ready to wrap this up, Jen?
Yes. I was about to dance it out, That's Thursday. That's Thursday.
So I know what she's talking about, if you don't know. Oh my God. So what she's talking about is every Thursday over on Instagram, we have the Life, Love, and Money show every Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is also 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us over there at the Life, Love, and Money show on Instagram. And trust us, it's so much fun. We dance it in, we dance it out. So that's what she was talking about, dancing it out. But here's the other thing. If you missed any of this, you've come into this late, please join us on our YouTube page, because you'll find all kinds of great information, and you'll also be able to watch the rest of this video. And if you want to talk to Jen about speaking to your group, or to, hiring us as coaches, hey, we're here to talk to you. Please DM us at any point. So we'd love to answer your questions. All right, everybody, here we go. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you out there. Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, Michael, and anybody else I might have missed. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care. Ciao.
Bye.